Now look, okay, I'm gonna get nice and close to the microphone for this one. I just want to be a Swifty, man. Okay. I just
let the man be a Swifty.
I just want to be a Swifty. What's going on? Welcome back to another episode of the Fantasy Football Fellas. Need to give another quick shout out to Talina for that awesome, sweet intro music. Tyler, I need give your 2 cents on the intro song because you weren't here last week when it was introduced, which is like
I know
partially cruel of us,
I know.
but also like
it was unfortunate to miss it, but man, you can listen to this on repeat and never get sick of it. Like it is like I don't know. You said it was fire. You said it was a banger. So it's a fire banger. I'll put it together. I'll put it together for all of us.
It's a fire banger. Hit them up for any super hot fire. Hit Talina up. TOLENA for any music producing needs that you might have. I tagged them in there in our Instagram stories when we released the podcast. They deserve the credit.
Yeah,
they're awesome.
Yeah. Yep.
They're hard workers. They'll create some sweet stuff for you. Well, fellas, we're back on Tuesday here.
Mm-hmm.
How are we doing on this fine Tuesday as we're recording?
Doing pretty good. Recovering from our little camping trip that we had. A little sore back.
From camping or golfing?
Oh, both. I can't deny it.
Oh man.
Yeah, but doing pretty good. Just got back to the school. I finally had to wake up at 6 a.m. again.
Dark o'clock.
Dark o'clock.
Early mornings again. So getting back into that. So but we're doing pretty good. We're talking football. Doesn't get much better than that.
Doesn't get much better than that. Tyler, how you doing, man?
Yeah, I'm kind of the same. I'm still recovering from our little rendezvous out east. I got some wicked sunburn still.
Yeah,
it's bad. It's bad, and it's bad. Like when you can look at your arm and see like the zigzags of like where you missed the sunscreen. It's bad, okay, but it was a blast. We had our dynasty leagues. Startup draft last night. That was a blast.
Yeah,
we'll get into that a little bit. Not this episode, but next episode. Because maybe a little teaser alert. We're
spoiler.
Gonna do a live dynasty mock draft for our next episode. So I'm looking forward to that. That's gonna be fun.
Oh yes, sir.
Yeah, it was a pretty straightforward draft, though. No surprises.
Just a lot of pick swaps.
No, well, we'll save it.
We'll save it. I was gonna say I'm trying not to spoil anything, but Cameron's over here just ready to open that can of worms.
He's downplaying one specific pick.
He really is. He really is. Well, again, we want to maybe give a quick apology for audio quality as well. GarageBand likes to work sometimes. And then there's times like tonight where I've spent an hour trying to get it open and working. And I've said, you know what, screw it. We're using the one Yeti mic. We're condensing to a smaller table. So we're not trying to shout across the table to get our words in. So
the effort that we put in for the viewers, for the people.
Someone get us a producer.
The effort Lucas put in.
The viewers. Good point. I can't take any credit for that.
It's all good, but we're thank you for your loyal listening as always. And our goal is to provide you the best fantasy advice and news possible. And speaking of that, let's just take a hard left turn into recent news and buzz from around the league. Now that preseason has started, coaches are starting to get a little more bold with how they're approaching the season, including Kyle Allen says Washington is trying to push Antonio Gibson into a similar role as Christian McCaffrey played in Carolina. And that is music to my ears. Is it time to go full hype train on Antonio Gibson, Cameron?
Well, I know you're there.
I'm there. I've been there. I've been there.
I am still pumping the brakes a little bit. In the preseason game, J.D. McKissic did see some work on third down with the starters. And I think I got to see it to believe it, because saying you're going to be in the same role as CMC is a huge ask. The man had 140 targets 2 seasons ago, which was
absurd.
better than most wide receivers. So I think I got to see it to believe it, but I don't think that means that I'm not saying that I'm not high on, like, I'm still very high on Antonio Gibson.
Oh, yeah.
You know, it's not like he's a fringe top 10 for me. And I think that's kind of where I'm going to keep him at. And there's a lot of reason to be excited now.
Absolutely.
But I'm pumping the brakes on he's for sure top 5 this season.
Absolutely.
If that makes sense.
No, absolutely. I can understand that hesitancy. I'm not that hype train of like top 5. He's going to be the next Dalvin Cook, or I'm not quite there yet. But we'll talk about this.
Close though.
We'll talk about this in today's episode. Because as by the title, you can all guess what we're going to be talking about. But we still have more news to cover. Brian Flores, we're going to go to Miami. Brian Flores says Miami, will use a 3-back committee. Myles Gaskin, Malcolm Brown, and Savannah Ahmed. Disgusting. Tyler is like, this is obviously disastrous news for all 3 of us. all 3 of us, like, I feel like when we did the Miami Dolphins podcast, we really didn't give Myles Gaskin enough like praise, because I thought he was a great value at his ADP.
Yeah.
He wasn't someone who I was going to reach for, but he's also a guy who was going to fall into my lap every single time.
Yep.
How does this, Tyler, specifically, how does this impact your ranking for Myles Gaskin now?
Oh man. Well, Gaskin was closer to a top 15 for me before the news than he was like a top 20, and which, I mean, in the grand scheme of things is maybe like 2 or 3 spots.
Yeah.
But he is now being pushed closer to like a running back 3 spot for me than he is like an actual running back 2.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, as a believer in Myles Gaskin, especially last year, he definitely deserves like that. I mean, in fantasy terms, a running back 2 spot, definitely deserves a lead back role with his offense. I don't understand what the appeal is with Malcolm Brown and Salvon Ahmed or whatever. Like I don't know. I'm not a football coach, so I can't tell you why. But like I said, I don't know. You could bank on Gaskin kind of falling a little bit later and having a relatively safe running back 2, and now all of a sudden he's no longer that. So throws a bit of question into who you're going to try to take for running backs ahead of Gaskin now.
Yeah, and Myles Gaskin is no Austin Eckler. Let's get that clear, because Austin Eckler last season was still in that, like, we're kind of using 3 running backs. And I mean, Brandon Staley just came out and said, we're going to use a variety of running backs again this season, which has scared some people. But as we're going to talk about in our episode here, there's not going to be as much reason to worry about that, I don't think, than it is this Myles Gaskin news.
For sure.
So I'll cruise through some other injury news here quick. Curtis Samuel comes off the PUP list for Washington. Justin Jefferson, AC joint sprain last week during practice, but he's back practicing in limited fashion. Chase Claypool is just today to be helped off the field at practice. Early diagnosis, minor ankle sprain. Steelers say he should be just fine, thankfully. We all haven't been that high on Chase Claypool. We've been anti-Chase Claypool from the get-go, but still, that's a big part of their offense, a big weapon in their offense. Deandre Swift, he was expected to return to practice today. I never caught news of if he actually practiced again today or not. That's not very good. But Darren Waller finally returns to practice today after sitting out for a few weeks with an ankle injury. Phew! As Tyler, maybe to spoil some of the next episode, took him in our dynasty draft.
Maybe.
No, he might allegedly.
Maybe.
Figuratively. Anyways, that takes care of all the recent news and buzz we have. So
For sure. You're not going to touch on Tebow?
Oh yeah, Tim Tebow cut by the Jacksonville Jaguars.
Cam loves that one, huh?
Sneaky. Everyone's saying he's gonna be a sneaky tight end 1 this year. Yeah, hop off.
Give me a break.
Let's move on to the bulk of the content for this episode. We got a lot to get through because we are cruising through our top 20 fantasy running backs for fantasy football this year.
Let's do it.
So we debated doing like a speed synopsis of like our big board and our positional rankings all in like 1 or 2 episodes. But then we thought, why don't we just There's 3 weeks until the regular season. Why don't we just spread it out over 3 weeks instead
There you
of
go.
trying to talk draft strategies? And we can mix those in here and there as we talk about the
Yeah.
episode. And why don't we just spread it out? So we're going to crank through our top 20 running backs this episode. We're going to do wide receivers next week. We'll double up on QBs and tight ends that following week. And we won't go
Beautiful.
through 20 tight ends because there aren't 20 fantasy relevant
But
tight
we will
ends.
do 20 kickers this episode.
Yes,
after.
yes.
Yeah, make sure we'll get our top 20 defenses too. Yes,
Well,
absolutely.
I know that pains Lucas that we're not going to be able to talk about Chris Herndon in our tight
I
ends, but-
know.
Well, who knows? Maybe he does crack the
Who
top 10.
knows? Who knows?
Don't want to spoil it.
I'd probably need to put him at like number 1 in our in my rankings to make it have him get into our top 10 consensus.
At least.
So to preface the rest of this podcast, we're going our consensus top 20 rankings for redraft leagues this season. So we all don't have them ranked in the exact same order,
Mhm.
but we're going with the average ranks for each player, go in the order in which they, come up in our ranks. And that's how we came to our consensus list. So
Yes.
let's just dive right in. And so we'll start at running back 1, work our way down towards running back 20. And
Perfect.
to everybody's surprise, our consensus running back 1 is Miles Sanders.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I think I'm gonna find a new podcast.
Fella.
No, I am very much kidding. Hopefully you didn't cut out of the episode as soon as I
Yeah,
said
right.
that.
Come back.
Come back, please. Our consensus running back 1 is Chris McCaffrey.
Yep.
We all have that running back 1 across the board. I don't know what else I really need to say. Cameron, is there any reason to think that a guy like Dalvin Cook or Alvin Kamara could actually finish ahead of Christian McCaffrey this
I
year,
mean, there's-
outside of injury?
There's always a chance, but I mean, he's had 113 targets, 124 targets, and 141 in last year's.
Those are wide receiver numbers.
Last year is on pace for 120 targets.
Oh,
so,
man.
I mean, he's gonna get you 100 receptions. He's gonna get 1,000 yards for sure rushing. He'll be at least 800 yards receiving. It's just crazy numbers. And I mean, in 2018, he scored only 11 total touchdowns, and he sold 24 fantasy points. Put that in perspective, Dalvin Cook had 24 fantasy points. He scored 18 total touchdowns last year. So he just makes up for points in a way that you can't compete with. 2019 had 19 total touchdowns, and in 3 games last year, it's 6 total touchdowns. But we put him on a pace for 32 total touchdowns, which obviously probably wouldn't have hit, but it's still just insane. to
I
think about.
mean,
So I mean, he's gonna get you 100 or 350 touches this year. He's gonna put up probably 2,000 scrimmage yards and close to 15 touchdowns. Yeah, I'm not skipping over that. I'm
No.
sorry.
There's no need to get cute. It's
Yep.
Christian McCaffrey at 1. And let's move on.
Perfect.
To Dalvin Cook, who's our consensus running back 2. Again, we all have Dalvin Cook at running back 2 in our rankings.
Mhm.
Now, look, there's been a lot of like hot take guys out there this offseason. This has drove me up a wall saying you should avoid Dalvin Cook because of his risk of injury probability, specifically with his one shoulder being like 40 to 50% chance of re-injury. And those numbers like mysteriously came out of nowhere.
Yeah.
Like Dalvin Cook hasn't injured that shoulder since 2019. So I don't know why this wasn't a concern last season when we're drafting him or why it didn't come up. So that whole take, it's got to be one of the most ludicrous things I've heard this entire offseason.
Yeah.
And it's not because we're Minnesota Vikings fans, but if you're going to decide to not draft a player based on injury, okay, that means you're going to pass on Christian McCaffrey. That means you're going to pass on Alvin Kamara. That means you're going to pass on Saquon Barkley. That means you're going to pass on Nick Chubb. That means you're going to pass on Austin Eckler. These are all guys who have been hurt within the last 2 years, the same stretch that Dalvin Cook has been injured, right?
Yeah.
So if you're going to use that argument, then you have to apply it to every other running back that has been injured in that same time frame. Alvin Kamara's chance of re-injury on his knee, it's somewhere like 25% or something like that.
That's crazy.
So why are we why is Alvin Kamara, spoiler, still going 3? Anyways, we're on Dalvin Cook, but the point I'm trying to make is players get injured. It's part of the game. Dalvin Cook is the second best running back in fantasy football. Tyler, just tell the people why they should be drafting Dalvin Cook as running back 2 this year.
Yeah, so I'll keep harping on these injuries real quick. Past 2 years, he's missed 4 games total. One of those games was because it was week 17. Vikings were out of the playoff picture.
They didn't play him.
Yeah,
Right.
like his dad passed away. There was no reason for him.
He
to
didn't have a
play.
choice.
Right. So there's 3 games in the past 2 years that he's missed, and it's only been 1 game at a time. Right.
Yeah.
Like it's never in a stretch.
Yeah.
Right. So the whole injury talk, just having the mindset of anyone can get injured.
Yeah.
Should be your mentality for literally every player that you draft.
Unless they've missed like 6 games, like 4 seasons in a row.
Right.
Then you can maybe say they're injury prone, but other than that,
Or if
it's
they're
like-
dealing with injury going into the
Yes.
season, which we'll get to with guys like Saquon Barkley right now.
Right. So it's the whole injury talk needs to just kind of mellow out for a bit.
Quit being the hot take guy.
Come on now. That's my job.
That's his job.
That's my job. Come on, people. Anyway, Dalvin Cook is just the modern day workhorse running back where you can dominate the ground game. And maybe you don't get a whole lot, or you don't get that many opportunities as, let's say, an Austin Eckler or Christian McCaffrey in the air, but you still make the most of it when it does come your way. And look, if he's not your number 2, he's certainly your number 3.
Yeah.
Has to be.
So Dalvin Cook is a top 3 for sure. Like no debate. And that's all that needs to be said.
That's all that needs to be said. And that's why we're going to move on to our number 3 running back, Alvin Kamara, as I spoiled just a little bit earlier. Again, all 3 of us have a running back 3. And I know I originally had Derrick Henry in front of Alvin Kamara, but then I changed my rankings when the Michael Thomas injury came out. And now they're going to start force feeding Kamara more. And I started considering how much regression Derrick Henry might actually see this year. Can you say it's a fair justification about all of us having Kamara at 3?
Oh yeah, I mean, Kamara he's another guy like McCaffrey. He is just a staple of consistency. Every year except for 1 year, he's had 100 targets. In the year he didn't, he had 97 targets. He's had at least 80 receptions every year. He's had at least 1,300 total yards from scrimmage. He's had 13 total touchdowns or higher in all but 1 year, and that year he had 6. So that was just an outlier of a season. And in that year, he only had 6 total touchdowns. He only had 1,200 yards. This is his lowest by 400 total yards. He had only 170 touches, and he still averaged 18 fantasy points a game. His worst season, he averaged 18 fantasy points a game, and last year he was RB1 with 25.2 fantasy points a game. He is insanely efficient. He's averaging 5.1 yards a carry for his entire career. It's just, you can't beat it. I don't care if Taysom Hill's starting. And he had a rough 2 first games with Taysom Hill starting last year. He was scoring 5 and 10, but then the second 2 games he was 17 and 22.
He was fine.
And then that was when Taysom Hill started to look a little bit more like a quarterback, and was throwing the ball a little bit more, wasn't taking away as many rushes. And so you got to stick with Alvin Kamara at 3. He's just too good in the passing game to pass up.
Absolutely. And considering he's the guy now, because there's no more Michael Thomas, volume is king, baby. And that's why we're going to talk about Derrick Henry next at number 4. We all have him as our running back 4. Like I said, the story for Derrick Henry has been volume on volume on volume. Not a great pass catch like the first 3 guys, but the amount of rushing attempts he gets per game makes up for it entirely. He is like the lone exception for PPR.
Yes.
I don't know what else I really need to say. Tyler, what would you say? And this is where it gets interesting, right? Like Tennessee's had a few adjustments this offseason. Arthur Smith is now gone for Atlanta. They bring in Julio Jones. Now you got AJ Brown and Julio Jones on the outside. What's the range of outcomes for Derrick Henry this year, given those circumstances?
Ooh, that's actually a good question.
I mean, we haven't been running back 4.
Right. So he's still going to be in a running back 1 conversation. I don't think he's going to be anywhere close to the Christian McCaffrey, Cooks, and Kamaras of this year, right? Mm-hmm. Like, and I believe that only because I think Tennessee, if they're smart enough, I should say that if they're smart, they don't give Henry the ball 300 times for the 3rd year in a row.
Yeah. Because
longevity and durability at that point goes right out the window if he goes 1 more year with that amount of volume, which is hard to hear as fantasy players and stuff, but in the long, in the grand scheme of things, it might actually help Henry out a bit more where sure, maybe he's not putting up 25 points solely on rushing and rushing touchdowns, but it'll be closer to maybe 1920, which
Yeah.
is still very respectable and still worthy of a top 5 pick.
Yeah.
It's just, I have reason to believe also bringing in Julio and an offensive coordinator change. Usually those two things combine to mean we're going to throw the ball a little bit more than usual, right?
Yeah.
Like that's something that an offensive coordinator would desire. So,
and to go off that, every running back who's rushed for 2,000 yards in the Super Bowl era has regressed in yards. So nobody's gone 2,000 and then rushed for more yards
than that.
last year.
Yes.
So there will be a natural regression after last season.
There absolutely will. And that's why I think I think the ceiling is probably running back 3 for Derrick Henry. And I think the floor could probably easily be running back 8.
Yeah.
Running back 9.
Yeah.
I don't think he
Is
falls
that
out of
too
top
low?
10, though.
I don't know. No.
It's either a like mid to high or it's a low end.
And he's
running
not
back
just a
one.
volume guy. He's super efficient. He's
Efficient.
averaged
He's
over
efficient.
5 yards a carry last 2 years.
He
And they know what the game plan was. It's not like they were hiding it. It was they're going to run with Henry, and he's still averaging over 5 yards a carry.
and he bruises
Oh,
through people.
Yes.
Like it's
Just
not like
wears down
he's
defenses.
not finding holes and then getting hit,
Yes.
at 5 yards after the carry. Like it is like he is met at the -1 yard line,
Yes.
and then he picks up 7 yards.
Well, if he falls forward, he picks up 4 yards just in that.
Right.
So-
Yeah, right. So we're not talking a guy like Zeke who's got a stud O line around him who
Yeah.
doesn't have to worry about yards after contact so much. Derrick Henry is like yards after contact. Like that is his bread and butter right there.
Yep.
So there is going to be wear and tear, and I agree, Tyler. I think it would probably help him in the long run to get closer to 250, 275 touches instead this year. But yeah, I mean, it's still worthy of a top 5 pick. Totally agree.
Still. Yep.
Let's move on to our guy who wraps out the top 5, and that's Ezekiel Elliott. We're all in agreement on our top 5 picks so far.
Wow.
We all have Ezekiel Elliott at running back 5. And now I'm passionate about Zeke because I've been getting a lot of Zeke slander this offseason, and I am not here for it.
Not here for it.
Oh, Zeke's not even close to top 5. He's barely top 10. All right. Yeah, he finished as running back 9 in his worst season last year. Give me a break.
Yeah.
No.
I mean, I've been on the record saying that Ezekiel Elliott might have the safest floor out of all first-round running backs outside of like Christian McCaffrey.
I'd say outside top
yeah.
3.
Delvin Cook, too.
Yeah. Yes.
Well, my opinion, I think it's CMC and Ezekiel, and I understand you can argue Dalvin Cook, you can argue Alvin Kamara. I will accept those arguments. I wouldn't blame you. But anyways, Cameron, why should fantasy managers be taking Ezekiel Elliott as running back 5 and likely even 5th off the board?
Last 3 seasons, he's had over 70 targets. So he gets pass work. I mean, he had 70 targets last year, and Dak wasn't even playing. Like, that's what we were saying. He finished running back 9 last year, and Dak wasn't there. There was only one thing that they could do, and that was either just get lucky on a pass or hand it off to Zeke. So teams were stacking the box. They're like, we're going to make you beat us with your quarterback.
They didn't have an offensive line either.
And he still had 15 fantasy points a game. In those first couple weeks with Dak, those first 5 weeks, he went 27.7, 22.2, 17.8, 20.5, and 23.5 fantasy points.
He was top 3 last season.
That's for sure in the conversation for top 3 last year. And that Dallas offense is only going to be more explosive. It's CeeDee Lamb and Amari Cooper are only going to help expand or open up the field. He's just too good not to take. And he's going to get north of 240 carries, north of 50 catches. So I just don't think with the volume alone, even if because everyone is arguing his efficiency going on, even if that continues to happen with the volume alone, he's top 8. It's just, I mean, he gets so much volume that you can't argue with it.
In 2018, 2019, he was 1st or 2nd in running back and rushing attempts.
Yes.
In a full season. So that includes 2016, 2017, he was suspended, so he didn't play the entire season. In 2016, 2018, and 2019, he was either 1 or 2 in rushing attempts. He gets the volume, 70 catches. That's still top 10 or 70 targets. That's still top 10 at the position. Look, Zeke I'm not going to say he's the most well-rounded running back, but again, he's not the best.
Yes.
but that offense is so dynamic
Yeah.
and it's so tailored towards protecting Dak and getting the run game going that he's going to be successful no matter the circumstance.
100%.
You could, even if Dak wasn't at quarterback, say you put Kirk Cousins back there, Zeke would still be top 5.
Yeah.
That's the crazy thing.
Yeah.
Zeke is just so good that you can't base your opinion off of that just dumpster fire of a season last year for the Cowboys.
Yeah, and I also understand the argument that some people have of like, I don't trust a running back in a Mike McCarthy offense. Zeke is the exception to that argument. Like Mike McCarthy with Aaron Rodgers, you could tell it was Aaron Rodgers' show in Green Bay with minimal help in the run game. Mike McCarthy finally now he had it last year before Dak got hurt, but he has a running back that can complement the passing game. And that's how McCarthy likes to run his offense. He likes a complementary style. So yes, it's hard to trust a McCarthy running back.
But can you really name a Green Bay running back other than Aaron Jones? When's the last one that you can name?
That's a really good question.
Ty Montgomery.
Ty Montgomery,
He was a wide receiver.
He was a wide receiver.
So exactly.
Yeah.
So McCarthy never had a running back.
Oh, you ready for this? Ryan Grant.
Yeah, that was
Oh,
a
yeah.
while ago. That was like 2008.
Oh, I know.
So yeah, that's what I mean. Like McCarthy's never had a running back. So like just go off of that. Like you can't argue that Mike McCarthy sucks with running backs if he's never had a great running back, and he had arguably one of the top 3 quarterbacks at the position while he was playing.
In this generation,
yeah.
right?
So I don't know. I agree with you there. I wouldn't accept that argument that McCarthy can't have a top 5 running back on his team.
I mean, it's Ezekiel Elliott.
Yep.
He's the safest pick at number 5 for sure. And maybe arguably the second safest guy at that point. As I've kind of come to my senses, is Green Bay Packers running back Aaron Jones. He falls number 6 in our consensus rankings. And it's our first difference in ranking by only one spot. Tyler's got him at running back 6. Cameron and I have him at running back 7. Tyler, you originally had like Nick Chubb all the way up in this area. We'll talk about him in a little bit, but you've moved Aaron Jones up to that range now.
Yep.
What's your change of heart? What's your reasoning for that?
So I'll give you the past 2 seasons with Aaron Jones. And I think a lot of people thought last year was a step back for Jones. He still finished as running back 5 last year. And the year before that, he was running back 2. The only reason why he dropped down to 5 after pretty much the same season. I mean, it was a difference of 20 rushing yards, 100 receiving yards. The only difference was that he had 7 less touchdowns than 2019.
Yeah, that was the big thing in 2019 was the amount of touchdowns he had.
Right. So I want to believe that last year was reality for Aaron Jones in that offense, and especially with Aaron Rodgers now back. I should see, or we should see, a repeat of a running back 5, 6, or 7 finish for Aaron Jones, just because of the role he has in the offense. And I mean, he does get some usage in the passing game. He may forfeit some of the goal line carries. That's apparently what the plan is this year, to get AJ Dillon more involved. But I don't know. It's still like there's literally nothing that proves that Aaron Jones will have less volume than he did last year, or that he will take a step back in his durability or anything like that.
That's what I don't understand is his ADP is like running back 10 right now. And he's had 2 top 5 finishes in a row on an offense that is retained
for at least one more season.
And so it's just like, how can you not take him there almost?
Yeah.
Is what it kind of that, because for me, I had him way later. And then I was just like thinking, and I was like, how can I have him later after these last 2 seasons?
Running back 9.
He came back to earth and was still running back 5.
Yep.
You know,
I mean, and granted, there's quite a handful of running backs that were injured last season too, but still, some of those guys, I mean, you put Zeke and McCaffrey up there.
Still running back 7.
Still running back 7. Running back 8 if you really want to throw Saquon in there too. Whatever. We're not going to get cute with it, right?
Yeah.
It's like Aaron Jones is good.
Yes.
He is borderline. He is somewhere between 8 and 5.
Yeah.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
End of story.
Yeah, and I'll harp back to our like former Packers running backs real quick. Ryan Grant, James Starks.
Oh yeah, James Starks.
And then it was a year between. It was like a Cedric Benson, Alex Green.
Oh
combination.
yeah.
Then the refrigerator 2.0 of
Eddie
Eddie Lacy.
Eddie Lacy.
That's right.
Yep, that was the
all
one
he
I was
had.
trying to think of.
Yeah, like that's all McCarthy had.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's just a little side note.
Yep.
But
For sure.
again, Aaron, like there's literally no reason why Aaron Jones shouldn't be like a top 7 pick in your fantasy draft. And
Absolutely.
For whatever reason, he's end of the first.
Yeah.
And I think it's because we have a few guys here that we'll talk about that are kind of making arguments for themselves.
Yeah.
So maybe this should be what I close on. We're Minnesota Vikings fans, and we're telling you that Aaron Jones is a good running back. Okay, draft Aaron Jones inside of your top
For sure.
8 running backs. We'll move on to running back 7 in our consensus rankings, and this guy is tough.
Very
He's
tough.
My most frustrating player, one of my most frustrating players to rank outside of my boy DeAndre Swift. Saquon Barkley comes in at number 7. Tyler, you have him right at running back 7. I have him at running back 6. Cameron, you have him at running back 8, and he has to be one of the most frightening players to draft this year, simply because of the uncertainty with his current injury. I took him in our dynasty. Spoiler alert, I took him in our dynasty draft last night. I was terrified to take him.
Which isn't a bad pick for a dynasty. The redrafts where I struggle because
I still struggled to dynasty with it.
we might not see the real Saquon until week 4.
No.
You know,
Right.
And even if he comes back, he's probably on a snap count. And that scares me. And if I'm honest, I'm on the edge of moving him down farther in my rankings. I have him the lowest out of all of us. The reason he's high is his rookie year was so incredible.
Yes. Running back 1 in his rookie season.
91 catches, 121 targets, 2,000 total yards, 15 touchdowns, 24.1 fantasy points a game.
90 or 91 receptions is just what blows me out of the water every time.
Crazy. I mean, and then 2019, he did regress a little bit. He only played 13 games. He still had 1,500 total yards, still had, he only had 8 touchdowns that year, but he still had 52 catches on 73 targets. And that was good for 18.8 fantasy points. So, he can put up points, and then last year he's just hurt. It's just, when is he going to be back? Because if he misses 3 games, that's kind of the rumors. He could miss up to 3 games at the beginning of the season. It's hard to spend a first round pick on a guy who's not going to be there for the first 3 weeks.
Oh, especially in redraft.
Yes. And so he's a guy that I would never blame anyone for passing on. If you go, he's not on my draftable list, unless for some reason he's on every single person's draftable list in your league. I would never blame you for not taking him. It's just, we know the upside is so incredible. And
we've only gotten 1 season of it. We've been robbed in two previous seasons.
We have. So for that reason, I'm probably out on Saquon unless he falls to the end of the first. And I'm going to have to be okay with that and understand that if he does come back and he is super healthy right away and he pops off, it was kind of a calculated risk.
Yeah.
And so
that's exactly it.
But the chance of him hitting is still high throughout the year, just because he's so talented.
And that offense got better with the addition of Kenny Golladay, adding rookie Kadarius Toney to hopefully open up the field a bit more for him. Okay. So, look, Saquon, draft at your own, at your own comfort level. If you take him as high as 6, I'm not going to blame you. If he falls out of the first round, frankly, I don't know if I can really blame anybody right now either.
If you take him first round, you need to make sure that you have a solid running back too. Like that would be my draft strategy. If I take Saquon, I need to take a running back in the second round.
You need an insurance policy immediately that can replace him. And hopefully it'd be one of these guys we talk about later in the rankings. Yes. But before we get there, we got a few other players to discuss. Coming in at running back 8 in our consensus rankings, Nick Chubb. Tyler and I have him right at running back 8. Cameron has him at running back 6. And look, we recognize Chubb's in a shared backfield with Kareem Hunt, but he finished as running back 8 in 2019. Finished as running back 9 in fantasy points per game last year. Tyler, I'm just going to ask it bluntly. Is Nick Chubb worthy of a first-round pick in fantasy drafts?
Absolutely. I understand that maybe I'll put it this way. He's the discount Derrick Henry because he doesn't get that much work in the air, but he makes up for it on the ground. And Nick Chubb probably is the one guy, probably along with like Dalvin Cook, maybe Zeke, that can just break off an 80-yard run just on a,
and Miles Sanders.
We're not going there.
We'll get it.
We're not going there.
I'm just keep going.
But like, it takes a dynamic runner to just break off 80-yard runs at a moment's notice. And you can't necessarily bank on Chubb having an 80-yard run every single game.
Yeah.
But he has the potential to, and because he has that potential, he has to be a running back one. Because maybe it's 15, 16 points, but that score automatically shoots up to what, 23, 24 points then?
Right.
For that, like on that one play.
That's the big difference with him and other big play ability guys. I jokingly brought up Miles Sanders, right? But like, that's the thing. Chubb's base is 13 fantasy points a game.
Yes.
Yeah.
He rips off a 75-yard touchdown run. That's money in the bank.
Right.
That's 20. That's free money.
Mm-hmm.
That's free money.
Yeah.
So I'm totally with you. Chubb, I think, is one of the, I think everybody who's drafting this year is doing all of us who really like Nick Chubb this year a favor.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
By really tampering expectations. I'm saying, well, he's going to split backfield with Kareem Hunt and whatever. It's been fine the last 2 years.
Yeah.
His ceiling without Kareem Hunt, his ceiling could be what? RB1?
Yeah.
RB2? Top three?
Yeah.
He could be up there because that 2019 he had 49 targets.
Yeah.
And Kareem Hunt came halfway through the season. So he could definitely be in the running for 60 plus targets if Kareem Hunt leaves.
Right. And granted, Kareem Hunt's there. Kareem Hunt is there right now.
Yep.
But Nick Chubb, he's so good.
He is.
He's so good. He is worthy of a first round pick.
5.6 yards an attempt last season.
Oh,
insane.
And did their O-line only get better this offseason too?
And you know what the Browns are going to do. They're going to run the ball and do play action.
Shout out Kevin Stefanski.
He hasn't changed his offensive scheme and since he started calling plays, and it's worked out pretty well for him.
And now he's got two elite running backs.
Yes.
Well, maybe elite's a little generous for Kareem Hunt at one point was elite.
Yes.
So
he had at least one season or 2 seasons of eliteness.
Yes.
And then screwed it up.
Then we'll leave it at that. We'll move on to probably one of the most controversial running backs this offseason. Jonathan Taylor comes in at running back 9 in our consensus rankings, and now I'm some of these people who are listening to the podcast are probably freaking out at this point.
Yeah.
He's all the way at 9. Tyler and I have a running back 9. Cameron, you have a running back 10, and we've all been conflicted on him this offseason because it seems like everything nowadays. There's 2 polarizing opinions on Jonathan Taylor. He's the breakout top 5 running back candidate this season, or he's the first round bust candidate this season. We've held the middle ground the entire time. I cannot say this enough. We have held the middle ground because we do see his upside being top 5. But we also see his floor falling outside of the top 10. So why not hold the middle ground on him and take guys who we feel more confident in, who don't have as much fluctuation? Anyways, Cameron, how are you now drafting Jonathan Taylor, knowing that Carson Wentz and Quentin Nelson are likely to return sooner than later? Because they were out 5 to 12 weeks was a timeline, and now they're going to be back sooner than later. How are you drafting Jonathan Taylor now? Based off of your rankings, I can probably already guess.
I'm probably right around that 1-2 turn, probably getting closer. Like if I'm pick 11, second round right there, I'm taking him. He's still got great upside. The tier that he was on at the end of last year was insane.
Yeah.
Granted, he played against awful rush defense.
Played Gibson twice.
He had
no.
Phillip Rivers, who would dunk the ball down to him anytime he wanted to. So I don't know. He's so talented. Like we're not like I have him running back 10, and I think he's probably one of the top 6 most talented running backs in the league right now.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
He is insanely talented. But Nyheim Hines is going to be there and do just enough to annoy the crap out of you if
Yeah.
you have Jonathan Taylor in fantasy football. Nyheim Hines probably won't be fantasy relevant this year.
No.
But he will take away enough touches that you're like, what the heck? And then Marlon Mack's in there as a question mark. I don't think he'll have a huge fantasy impact like on Taylor, but you never know at the same time. And so I still think he can be a top 10 guy. I obviously have him there.
Yeah.
I think he will be a top 10 guy. It's just, I don't think he's going to be top 3 this year, just because you have Nyheim Hines first year with Carson Wentz. And so he's super talented. I can't say that enough. It's just, there's just enough going against him that I can't move him higher than where he's at.
There's just enough good going for
Yes.
him as there is bad.
Yes.
And that's just the reality. And I'm not gonna look. And this is where like my Saquon ranking is just becomes so like I'm so twisted on it because would I rather have Jonathan Taylor instead of Saquon? I might.
Yeah.
But I have Saquon 3 spots higher.
Yeah.
Right.
He's so tough.
See, because this is his ceiling. His last 6 games or whatever, he went 15.4 fantasy points, 22.5, 30.5, 19.5, 19.4, and 38.4. That's the ceiling. That's what you could get.
Yeah.
At peak value. It's just, will he hit that throughout the entirety of the season?
And we just don't know.
We don't know.
And we don't know.
And that's why I have him later.
Yeah. And I can't fault you for that whatsoever. Look, play the middle ground on him. If someone wants to take him as running back 4, fine, let him do it.
Yeah.
I don't care. One of those guys we have ranked higher is going to fall right to you. That's fine. Don't hurt yourself by drafting him too early. I think that's the only piece of advice we can give.
For sure.
Let's start clipping through these guys a little bit quicker, mostly because we still got another 11 running backs to go through here.
Keep it to a minute.
We'll keep it to a minute. Each guy will cruise right through. We got Austin Eckler coming in at running back 10. Tyler, you got him at 10. I got him at 10. Cameron has him at running back 9. We alluded at the beginning of the podcast. Brandon Staley came out, said the Chargers will use a variety of backs, and that threw the fantasy community into a frenzy.
Oh, well, that threw us to a frenzy when we were out camping. We're like, this almost ruins the weekend.
It wasn't fun to have. We were drinking a beer out, looking over Lake Michigan, and all of a sudden we're drinking a little bit faster. No. However, I did some stat digging. I came across these numbers. Makes me feel a little bit better about the statement. So in Austin Eckler's healthy games with Justin Herbert under center last year, he handled only 50% of the team's running back carries and 20% of their goal line carries. He still averaged 19.4 fantasy points per game.
I believe it.
So part of me is like, this isn't news.
Yeah.
Part of me is like, nothing news under the sun with the Chargers, I guess. But when I first heard that, I agree. I'm like, I want a monster season for Austin Eckler. I think I had him closer to running back 8 before this, and now I had to bump him back down and tamper my expectations a little bit. But anyway, Tyler, I know this got us all scared. Stats reassured me a little bit.
Yeah.
How has your outlook changed on Eckler?
I'm the same. I'm the exact same way as you. I was scared at first, but then the more I thought about it, Eckler, when he came onto the scene, you know who was actually the RB1 for the Chargers?
Melvin
It
Gordon.
was Melvin Gordon.
Yeah.
So Eckler has always been in a committee or in a variety mix of running backs, and he has still been a lower end running back 1 with I guess I can't really say upside of like high end running back 1,
but he'll win you weeks.
Right, he'll win you weeks, and I think the best one of the things I was most curious about, because in different formats, right, Eckler is solely a PPR pick. There's minimal upside when in a standard league where you're just banking on rushing and touchdowns and stuff like that. But you have settings, right, where you have full point PPR and you have half point PPR, right? And I was like, what's the difference, right, between a full PPR? Because that's what we've always played, and he's a monster there. But what about half PPR? And if I take a look at my notes, he's like right around the same, maybe like 2 spots lower. Like there's no matter how many points you try to take away per reception on him, he's still going to finish as a running back 1.
Yeah.
And I don't expect that to change. Initially I did. Again, that heart, attack that you have, or that sinking feeling that you feel when you see something like that, it's the worst feeling. But when you come back to your senses a bit and you actually kind of do the research, this is nothing new, and he's just fine.
And he very well could just completely take over that backfield.
Oh,
yeah.
yeah.
Realize how good he is over the course of the year.
Justin Herbert could throw seriously. Like we're talking about 90 receptions in the season. Like Austin Eckler could hit that, not 90 receptions, but he could hit that 75 mark. He could hit that
easy.
80 mark.
Mm-hmm.
It's totally possible. So I love him in PPR formats
For sure.
Let's move on to the 11th guy in our rankings, and it's everybody's favorite segment. Cameron monologues about Joe Mixon, baby.
Bring it on.
Tyler has been running back 11. Cam, you have been running back 11. I've been running back 12. And Cam, I'm just going to turn it over to you. Give us your minute monologue on Joe Mixon.
Joe Mixon's amazing. Need I say more? Joe Mixon last year averaged 3.6 rushing yards an attempt and still had 16.6 points per game. Like this dude could be awful this year, but because of volume, if he busts, he will be a mid-range RB2.
Mid-range. We're talking like RB16, RB15.
Just because the amount of volume that he's going to receive. Samaje Perine is not going to take away carries. I don't care what you say. He will not.
He'll hardly take away targets.
Yeah, exactly. Mixon will be on. Last year, he was on pace for almost 65 targets. I assume that goes up. So we're talking probably 75 targets this year for Joe Mixon.
Throw in one extra a game.
Probably 60 receptions. Probably 400 yards. I mean, like he's just gonna get volume on top of volume, and this team is finally gonna be spread out with Joe Burrow back. You got Jamar Chase, Tyler Boyd, and T. Higgins. Like you as a defense, you have to respect all three of those targets.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas before, you're just like, all right, I'm just gonna make you beat me through the air.
Yeah.
And so even if the efficiency is not there, he's a low on RB2. If the efficiency is there, which we saw in 2018 when he averaged 4.9 yards an attempt, he's going to be really good
against with a crap offensive line too.
Yes. Yep. So that's not an argument anymore. He'll get you 1,200 rushing yards. He'll probably get you 60 receptions this year. I mean, he had 278 rushing attempts in 2019, and I honestly think that number is going to go up. So I can't bet against Joe Mixon right now.
Well, so and I think a lot of people are like, well, they drafted Jamar Chase in the first round. They have to be a pass-happy offense. Not when you see the reports about Burrow not actually looking like himself so far in training camp. And the only way you get a sophomore quarterback back into kind of a football groove or into a space to operate, you start with a run game.
Yeah.
You get the ball out of his hands, and then you build off the play action.
Reports have come out. Joe Mixon looks to be in the best shape of his career. This man is motivated and coming for blood.
He's lined up in the slot. He's going to get targets. There's literally no reason why Mixon. I mean, sure, you can make an argument that like Mixon isn't a top 10 running back or a top 15 running back.
Oh yeah.
But fantasy wise, it doesn't matter. He will put up high-end running back 2, and he will push into the low-end running back 1.
His worst season is running back 13 in a full season.
Yeah.
That's all I need to know.
Thanks,
Let's move on to Antonio Gibson because we could run the well dry on Joe Mixon. Antonio Gibson comes in at number 12. Tyler, you have him at 12. I'm at 11. Cameron's at 13. Look, I've been on the Gibson hype train for a full year. I was saying it going into last year, Gibson could be the best decision you make on draft day. And he was for every fantasy manager who took him. Gibson was the best decision they made on draft day. Saying it again now, Gibson could be the best decision you make on draft day this year.
Dagger.
Tyler, is it possible Gibson has this monster breakout season this year? Is it possible? Is it within his realm of possibility?
I think it's definitely possible. Now here's I have to tamper what I have to pump the brakes a bit with the news of this McCaffrey role that he's getting pushed into.
100%.
Antonio Gibson is not Christian McCaffrey.
No.
The role or the volume could be there. But it's at that point you ask, how efficient are you going to be with the volume? It's going to be a high-end running back 2, low-end running back 1 again, just like Mixon, right?
Yeah.
Regardless of what the role is, whether it was last year or it's this year with the new McCaffrey role, it's going to be that kind of efficiency. I can't give he's going to be top 7, top 6 finish yet. I need to see a year of that. But he has every reason to, based off of just what we saw last year and with his own talent.
Yeah.
But then also that offense really does like to just get their guys into space and let them do their thing.
Yep.
Right. Like we saw JD McKissick, Terry McLaurin, Logan Thomas kind of came on out of nowhere. Right. Like this is how the offense is run. Get your guys into space and let them do their thing.
Yeah.
So Gibson for sure has every reason to, you know, maybe I'll put it this way. He will, like, if you can double up on, let's say, I don't know, Aaron Jones and Antonio Gibson. Oh my goodness gracious.
Yeah. It's hard to beat.
Right.
And especially for where he's going, he is such a value.
Oh,
Right.
he's such a value.
Right. Like, also, like, I don't know what ESPN's ADP, but like the former, you know, more recent mock drafts I've done, Gibson's going at like his ADP is like 16 or his ranking is 16. And he's still kind of falling because there's a couple wide receivers that are right after him that people are taking in front of him. So gladly, again, Aaron Jones, Antonio Gibson, Zeke. I mean,
if you go Zeke and Gibson,
If you get Zeke and Gibson, oh goodness.
I mean,
Oh goodness.
spoiler, I didn't do that in Dynasty, but hey,
I
you know what?
I missed it. I missed it
but
too.
you did take this next guy.
I did take the next guy, and well, yeah, let's just take it from there.
Gibson's going to be great. Okay. He's going to be great. He might not be CMC himself, but I am on the Gibson hype train.
Yes.
Until it runs out of steam, I am on it.
Mm-hmm.
We'll transition to running back 13 on rankings. Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Tyler has him right at 13. You're doing really good with consensus rankings. You're like spot on. I think you're
spoiler. I've got everyone except for the last one.
Oh man, Tyler. These are Tyler's rankings. No, consensus rankings still. Tyler's got him at 13. I got him at 14. Cam has him at 12. Look, he's one of our favorite targets this year. Struggled with Le'Veon last year, but he's running back 11 in weeks 1 through 6 before Le'Veon was in town. In his 17-game pace without Le'Veon Bell would have had him as running back 6. That does some convincing for me.
Yeah.
Cameron, just tell the people why they should be in on CEH this year, even after those numbers.
CEH and Mahomes. Remember, Mahomes is the highest paid player in football by a lot.
By a lot.
So his word has some pull. Both told the coaching staff that they want to get passing to the running backs more involved in their game strategy. So he'll see more work in the passing game. He is super shifty. He makes people miss like crazy.
He is shifty.
He does not have the crazy breakaway speed that I think could get him to be RB1.
Right.
But I think because of the offense that he's on, the volume that he could see, because I think this year he does take over that backfield.
Oh yeah.
I'm not really worried about Darrell Williams and
No.
Jerick McKinnon.
Damian Williams got out of town.
And so
Take a hike.
I think CEH really takes over this year. He only scored 5 touchdowns last year.
Oh, that's going to go up.
Which was Gibson was 11. So they were both kind of at like the two different sides of the spectrum for rookie running backs. So I think that definitely is going to increase. Although I don't know by how much, because they do like to do all sorts of trickery throwing plays down at the goal line with Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce.
Yep.
However, 5 is going to increase. He only played 13 games last year. I just believe in the Kansas City offense so much.
Yes.
Especially what they did with Kareem Hunt, that I don't see why they can't replicate it with CH.
Well, and here's the other thing. Their offensive line is arguably the best offensive line in the NFL.
Oh, they went out and made sure it was solidified.
Right. Like they're like last year, it was a reshuffled offensive line, right? Like Eric Fisher. Okay. Who the French doctor himself, he opted out. Mike Remmers was starting at the right tackle. Like now they went out then this offseason. They traded for Orlando, they traded for the tackle from Baltimore.
Orlando Brown.
Yep. They signed Joe Thuney from New England. They have then the doctor coming back, who's on the other guard. They signed Austin Blythe, who was a very underrated center. And then their right tackle, I'm blanking on who it is, but like this offensive line will most definitely help CEH this year.
Yes, absolutely. I'm in. I am in. I drafted him 6th overall in our league last year. I paid the price for it, but I don't care. I'm back in on CEH this year.
I've been in mock drafts where he's fallen in the 3rd round now.
Yeah, he's a value there. Take him.
Yes.
Oh my goodness, take him. Let's move on to Naji Harris. He comes in at 14 in our consensus ranks. Tyler, again, has him right at 14. I'm not even going to give Tyler's rank because it's just the same as a consensus rank.
Yes,
I have him at running back 13. Cameron, you have him at running back 15. I'm a believer in the amount of volume Naji Harris is going to get this season.
It will be impressive.
They were missing that dynamic, high volume playmaking running back last season. And it showed in their offense, right? So now they have Naji. They spent a 1st round pick on him. I gotta believe they're going to use him. They spent a 1st round pick on him. Tyler, are there any concerns you have for Naji Harris coming in this season?
None. I mean, maybe the offensive line, but it's Pittsburgh, and Pittsburgh will always have a very solid offensive line. Maybe it's not elite as it once was with Villanueva, DeCastro, Pouncey, all of them, but it's still going to be respectable, right? And I think Naji Harris he catches out of the backfield.
Yeah.
And he's a power back, but he's not so much of a power back as James Conner was.
Yeah.
That he will do everything possible to put up numbers, and I think he's good enough that he will.
Yeah.
And Pittsburgh has shown in the past when it's with a rookie running back like James Conner, they give the rookie running back volume. They give them that. So I think Najee's a fine pick for running back too. And I think a lot of people are kind of like trying to get ahead of the game by taking him right at the beginning of the second. That's rich when there's still guys, maybe, I don't know, Joe Mixon, Antonio Gibson, like some of those guys that are still there. But if you're middle of the second and you're not really sold on any of the wide receivers, and you're like, oh well, I could take Naji.
Yeah.
That's not a bad pick.
No, he's going to get the volume.
When you think of Steelers, you think of defense and running the football.
Yeah.
That's what they're going to try and do. Naji in his last preseason game was out there, and for all the snaps he played 30 of the 33 snaps that he could have played. He's going to be on the field. He is the clear number 1 with no competition. Benny Snell is not going to take anything from him.
Remember when you said are concerned about that way back in our second podcast ever? Yeah. No, Naji Harris is going to be good this year. We've come a ways. Naji Harris is going to be good.
Yes.
Let's move on to running back 15 in our consensus rankings. Deandre Swift. Tyler, you have him at 15. I got him at 17. Cam has him at running back 14. Now look, okay, I'm going to get nice and close to the microphone for this one. I just want to be a Swifty, man, okay? I just
let the man be a Swifty.
I just want to be a Swifty, okay? I'm gonna run that phrase into the ground because it is just too perfect to describe these people who are all in on DeAndre Swift. Okay, I want to be one of those people. I was one of those people.
You were,
but there's so much smoke coming out of that camp about Jamal Williams gonna play a hot hand, AB back. Swift struggling with a groin injury. Like, I'm just struggling and I can't get there. But Cam, you have him ranked the highest, and there is only one way to ask this question. Are you a Swifty?
I'm not a Swifty. I'm not. I probably won't end up with him on a ton of my drafts. However, the reason I have him so high is because last year he had 14.6 fantasy points per game on only 114 rushing attempts. He can do it from everywhere. He did have he had 8 rushing touchdowns on only 114 attempts, which is pretty crazy. A lot higher than the norm. However, I think his touches are going to go up even if he's splitting time with Jamal Williams. He is probably the best player on the team. Maybe behind Matt Stafford, or not Matt Stafford, TJ Hawkinson, that's what I meant. But he is incredibly skilled. They will need to be moving the ball up the field a lot, needing a guy who can catch the ball a lot. And I know Jamal Williams can catch the pass, but DeAndre Swift is better. I mean, I'm just being honest. And they can say all they want, but when push comes to shove, especially if you're bad, you're going to give it to your younger guy because Swift is only 2 months younger than I am, or 2 months older than I am. So he's going to get the ball a lot, or not a lot, but enough where he can get fantasy points. I think he's going to be really close to an Austin Eckler in that.
I want him. That's what I'm dreaming of.
Yes.
That. Okay.
Mhm.
I so wish I could get there. I'm just looking at some of these other running backs. I just think they're safer options, and that's where my.
I do think they're
is right
safer
now.
options. I just think for me, PPR, I think he's got a better upside.
And I'm not
because
gonna.
of it.
And I'm not gonna argue with that.
Here's my logic with Swift. Do you trust in the talent of Deandre Swift?
Yes.
I do, but I don't
you-
know if the coaches do.
I'm willing to take a risk on the player's talent and be wrong because of the coach than I am try to bank on the coach when the player's skill can prove him wrong. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's my logic, right? If Motor City Dan Campbell decides to, like, for whatever reason, to give Jamal Williams like an excess amount of chances,
He probably bites off more kneecaps. That's why.
Right, that's probably why. But like if he gives Jamal Williams too many chances, then I can criticize the coach more than I can the player not, excelling or being efficient enough to maintain a hold of his position.
Yeah.
So again, that's my logic. The player's talent is more than enough for me to keep him still in a top 15 spot, even with the smoke that's coming out.
Fair enough. Fair enough. I won't argue any of that because I could see how that would easily pay off if push comes to shove.
I'm just trying to help you.
I
Swifty.
do. I'm
That's
not
all
there yet.
doing.
I'm not there yet, but maybe before the regular. I don't know. I got 3 weeks yet. Let's move on to running back 16. We're gonna try and clip through these a little bit quickly. We're getting long on the podcast here. Tyler has him. Chris Carson. That's where a player is at running back 16. Our consensus rankings. Tyler has him at 16. I'm at 15. Cameron at 17. There's been a lot of excuses for Carson over the past years. Competition didn't work out too well for Carlos Hyde, Rashad Penny, DJ Dallas. How are they doing? Irrelevant. Injury, sure, fine. 2018, 2019, he only missed 3 games total before last season. 2017, different story, obviously, but those 2 seasons only missed 3 games. So in my mind, if Carson could finish running back 19 and 12 games last year, they were running the ball less last season. Top 15 finish. Has to be within the range of possibilities for Chris Carson this year.
Mm-hmm.
Is that a fair statement, Tyler?
Oh yeah. I mean, if you look at his years before last year, he had 1,100 yards and 1,200 yards rushing, and I believe that the touchdown splits were 9 and 7. And even so, then last year and the year before that, then he's getting more and more involved in the passing game, and with the reports now that Seattle wants their offense, or please give me the correct headline for this Seattle offense.
Seattle wants to play with more pace.
That to me is more than enough to tell me that Chris Carson will come through again this year.
That's touchdown equity.
Right. He's a sneaky running back too, who's going like 4th round, which is bizarre to me when we're taking guys, like Miles Sanders in front of him still, or
Josh Jacobs is going ahead of him.
Josh Jacobs, Myles Gaskin with the recent news still. Like, I don't get this, why Carson is just slipping down people's boards.
Yeah.
All 3 of us would be would happily accept him onto our teams if if we get him.
Chris
100%.
Carson's 25.
Yeah.
He's young still too.
Yeah.
So, I mean, look, Chris Carson, again, he's not a high ceiling guy. He's not going to crack the top 12, but he ain't going to fall out of the top 20. That's for sure.
That's for sure.
You're getting him, I think, right at about middle value.
Yes.
Running back 16.
100%.
I'll take that all day, every day. David Montgomery falls in at 17 for us. Tyler has him at 17. Cameron and I both have him at 16. We're all hyped for Montgomery in the offseason. Cooled off a little bit on him, but hype out of camp is pretty great so far. 20 touches a game, possibility.
Yeah.
Tariq Cohen still covering from injury, slowly creeping up our boards. Does David Montgomery actually have a real sneaky floor this season, Cameron?
I think so. I mean, my thing on Montgomery is we give Jonathan Taylor the benefit of the doubt, even though we saw only 6 great games from him last year. Why are we not doing the same for David Montgomery? Montgomery had a better stretch. He went 25.3, 27.1, 24.5, 29.2, 20.1, and 28.2. He never was below 20 points per game. And I understand he was against bad rushing defenses, but so was Jonathan Taylor. Montgomery was good enough to get himself all the way up to running back 4 last year.
Yeah.
That's insane. He was also 4th in yards after contact. He's going to be a really good running back. I understand if Justin Field comes in, he will rush the ball. But David Montgomery is really good. And I personally don't think Tariq Cohen's going to take that many snaps away, especially beginning of the year, just because he's still recovering.
Deteriorating knees.
Yeah. And so he's a guy who can get 4, 3, 4, 5 targets a game on top of a good workload. Yeah, I'm starting to creep back up on David Montgomery closer we get to camp.
I think the thing with Montgomery is that is he going to see that same amount of volume in the passing game? And I think the answer is no, but he's going to see more than he did his rookie season.
Yes.
Right.
Which is going to cause an increase, which is why I think 16 is probably like the most fitting spot.
17.
Well, I have at
yeah.
16,
Yeah.
right? But split hairs with me, 16, 17.
Right.
I think it's a perfect spot for him. So
Mhm.
I absolutely agree. I'm just gonna clip through these last 3 to avoid hopefully going over an hour here. I don't actually know what we're at. I can't see on my video here. There's nothing on the screen. Running back 18 is J.K. Dobbins for us. Look, and I think I can speak for all of us. We all want to love him this year. Ravens signed Gus Edwards. Doesn't help anything. He could be really good, but they're going to feed the ball to Gus Edwards. That's about it.
Not huge passing game involvement.
Bingo. That's the other thing. That offense does not target the running back in the pass game all that frequently either.
Yeah, real quick. He was running back 10 from weeks 13 to 17. That was because he scored once every game. He only rushed over 100 yards in one of those games. It was the last game of the year against Cincinnati.
Yeah.
It's tough to be. You can say, oh, you use the Jonathan Taylor, David Montgomery thing. Well, let's do the same with Deandre Swift. It's a totally different situation, man. Yes. Yeah.
Yes.
It's a different situation. The Ravens like to run the ball, but that's going to be far more of a timeshare than DeAndre Swift and Jamal Williams.
Yep.
Running back 19 in our consensus is Josh Jacobs. Tyler hasn't been running back 20. I've been running back 20, Cam at 19. We've all made it clear we're out on Josh Jacobs, and not in the sense of like we hate him as running back 19. It's the fact he's going into the 3rd round.
Yes.
I don't want him in the 3rd round. I don't want that as my running back 2.
Nope.
I'd rather take a shot on a guy in the mid-20s, a Kareem Hunt, Chase
100%.
Edmonds, maybe. I don't know. And those are just some statements. But if you're still hunting for running back in the 3rd round, like let Josh Jacobs fall, pass on him. He's not worth it.
Yep.
And running back 20 for us, this might be a shocker. Mike Davis. Tyler has him at 21. I have him at 21. Cam has him at 20. Been promoting him as a value the entire offseason. And every day he becomes even more of a value. He's going as running back 28 right now in ESPN leagues.
Crazy.
In the 8th round. That's a sneaky running back too in the 8th round.
Yeah.
And I have to just say, I have to give the notable absence in our top 20. I have to. It's Miles Sanders. We don't have Miles Sanders in our top 20.
Nope.
Nor should you.
He's our consensus running back 22. I am the highest. I actually have him inside my top 20 and running back 19. Slander me all you want, but
yeah, you suck.
Keep it coming. Now, Tyler has him at 23. Cameron, you have him at 25. Look, I'm going to quick read the list of reasons why we're all on a Miles Sanders, and then we're going to have to call it a podcast. 2019, finishes running back 15, but was running back 22 in fantasy points per game. 2020, he was running back 23 in 12 games, but was running back 20 in fantasy points per game. In his 4 starts last season, Jalen Hurts averaged 11 rushing attempts per game. That's more work. That's not going to Miles Sanders. Miles Sanders had 3 rushes in separate weeks that accounted for more than 60% of his weekly total. You want to know how many other players fit in that category? One.
Who was that?
David Montgomery.
Oh, well.
David Montgomery, gosh, I don't remember the number off the top of my head, but if you subtract those big plays where they accounted for more than 60% of the weekly total, David Montgomery drops 2 spots. Miles Sanders drops 7 spots to running back 30. Wow. One of those weeks, his 74-yard rush accounted for 92% of his weekly yard total.
That's insane.
And he still had 15 touches that game. Look, I think I'm generous having him at running back 19. I really do.
Mm-hmm. You're just a nice guy.
I'm a nice guy. I want to be a believer, but they cut Kerryon Johnson today. But I just look, if you're saying Miles Sanders is going to have a breakout season, top 15 season, that's a gut call, man. Because nothing I'm looking at here says top 15 season for Miles Sanders.
Nothing.
100%.
Nothing does. Well, thanks for sticking with us. We went a little bit long there, but that's okay, fellas. Any final thoughts on our top 20 running backs as we close out the podcast?
Just keep Miles Sanders out of it.
Keep Miles Sanders out. Yeah.
Look, we're not a Miles Sanders hate club, but we're just trying to
We're
preach.
pretty close.
We're pretty close. We are pretty darn close.
I don't associate myself with such a thing, but
Fella.
well, thanks for tuning in today. Holy smokes. Thanks for tuning in today. Social handles before we log off. FF Fellows on Twitter, the FF Fellows on Instagram, Fantasy Football Fellows, Facebook, YouTube, TikTok. We're going to go live on TikTok next week. I'm just going to make that announcement. We hit 1K followers on TikTok.
Oh, yeah.
Thanks to all the listeners out there who are following us on TikTok. We're going to go live next week. And that's it. Thanks for tuning in to the Fantasy Football Fellows podcast. We're just 3 Stooges being dudes. Deuces.
Deuces.